the catchy clip music.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Recovery Room holiday special. So happy Thanksgiving to our American friends.
Thanks, guys.
And there's no other place to start. Holiday anxiety has come up a lot on my community. Some people really find the holidays a hard, struggling time, and they want to talk about it. Is that something that you guys hear about a lot? Is it something that's common? I know that it's common around the Christmas period, obviously over here, but we don't have the Thanksgiving celebrations over here. But yeah, is it something that you guys hear
all the time?
Yeah, I think it's different for my anxiety disorder folks. There's one lot of stresses, and for my eating disorder folks, there's a whole different lot of stresses around the holidays. So that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And regarding the sort of things that you're hearing, guys, what is it that you're hearing? Is it that people just don't want to be sat down at a table with their families, or what?
I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead, you first.
No. So for me, it's a lot of how do I set boundaries? How do I manage family who are criticizing me or commenting? For the eating disorder crowd, it's how do I actually eat this food that I've avoided for a whole 365 years? Because they can't control their food that they're being served on these holidays. But then you've got the folks who are just afraid to leave their house for the first time, afraid to be exposed to COVID for the first time after a long time of quarantining. So it's unlimited. It's sort of unlimited how it can impact people.
Yeah, I get that the criticism, like their families, and everybody wants to weigh in and give their 2 cents as to, all you need to do is you just need a hobby, you just need a vacation. So yeah, I'm actually talking about that today on my Instagram. It's a thing. That's what I hear all the time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it, what unites it is expectations as well. All of those things. There are expectations on me, whether it's challenging an eating disorder, leaving the house, all the things that Kim said. Will I meet the expectations not only myself and the kind of societal familial expectations that are there, but also kind of the expectations of people around me, and particularly in family systems as well. Family systems can be quite unforgiving and unfiltered. So, there's lots of things that were said around a family table that aren't said around like a work table, put it that way. And some people, you might find that that's kind of abrasive in itself. There's a lot of pressure there. I still kind of get nervous when I go to family meetings because of grief. And I deal with grief in my own way. And when you go to like a family meal and notice that your loved ones aren't there, and it's different people dealing with grief in a different way, that gives me anxiety, because it's like I like to just kind of be reserved, sentimental, talk about it when it's appropriate. But then when there's different people around the table doing their own thing, I mean, my family are miserable gits as well. They'll be like, "Oh, it's 6 years since we lost Dominic." And it's just like, oh gosh. Oh, we just lost Kim as well. Well, I'll remember you, Kim. Right. Yeah.
It's been 6 years since we lost Dominic.
Back from the dead. Yeah, and so there's so many facets that can underpin your holiday anxiety.
And the thing is, we talk about boundaries being great for people, putting boundaries in place, and a lot of people have boundaries with their own families. And these boundaries become relaxed in the holiday period, like you say. So you may be visiting people that they're family, but you might not get on with them. They might not be healthy for your mental health, and it can be really straining, and it can cause a lot of arguments over the holiday period.
Yeah, anything, especially when people, it brings up emotions, and you're upset already and frustrated by the position you're in, and then that emotion and that frustration, that anger then becomes anxiety. So it just becomes this escalating spiral. It's tough. People struggle. I used to.
I was reminded of when Drew, you said, like, I'd like to do like a podcast on this or something one day, but like, people are afraid of the overwhelming emotions because it then may trigger anxiety. And that includes positive emotions too. Like I know people that are like, oh my god, I love Christmas, I love Hanukkah, I love insert religious holiday that applies to you, and it's really great. But actually, I found that when I get super excited, actually, it triggers my anxiety too. And there's that kind of holiday anxiety as well. Oh my god, like, you know, when I wake up and see my presents under the tree, that's really exciting, but also anxiety inducing.
Yeah. I think too, I think for a lot of people is when you're exposed around your family system, shame tends to show up a lot. And shame is anxiety provoking, right? Like it's an anxious response when we experience shame. No one wants to feel it. Shame is usually around like, will I get thrown out of this family system? And so I think even putting your entire anxiety disorder to the side, going into a family system can be anxiety provoking in and of itself, of like, who's going to shame me, and how much shame am I going to feel?
I'm looking forward to the next family meeting. I'm a family success, so I can't wait. There's definitely not going to be any shame.
Right.
Well,
you're lucky.
I totally, yeah, I totally understand that. A lot of people who were messaging regarding this live did mention what Josh mentioned on the fact of losing loved ones and that being brought up at the table. And like Josh mentioned before, that people have different ways of dealing with grief, and one person's way may be to speak openly about it because that reduces their anxiety, that helps them with their grieving process. But there might be other people at the table who are triggered by that occurring. So it's a fine balancing act, I reckon.
Yeah. Grief is huge. Grief is a huge piece of the holidays because the routines and the rituals have changed because, let's say, someone is no longer there. And a lot of people who have anxiety like things to stay the same. Like change can be very anxiety provoking for them. So there are so many levels to how grief can impact a family.
Yeah, there's just loads of stuff. Holiday anxiety, you've got the animosity, there's always arguments at tables. Maybe you don't like conflict, maybe you're struggling with PTSD and that conflict kind of, you know, then the expectation of being around a table with this conflict, tension. There always is in my family. Everyone plays ailment top trumps. You know, who's got it worse? You know, I've got to do this. It's so depressing. I
just said in the comments there,
my family.
Someone's put it's family members who don't believe anxiety is real, so they feel like they're being dismissed for their anxiety disorders.
Oh, that's that thing where they, you know, family members and friends, I mean, they know what anxiety is, but they don't know what an anxiety disorder is. So they come at you with those like, you know, there's a pill for that, or, you know, we got a pill for that. That's always a very dismissive thing to say. Or you really just need a good vacation. Like we're thinking about going to Hawaii. Come with us. Like if I go to Hawaii, don't you think I'll go? That's so. That was always.
Everybody gets anxious.
Everybody gets anxious. What do you have to be anxious about? That's my favorite one too. What to be anxious about? So great.
The state of anxiety itself, I'm in an inward spiral of rumination, constant threat triggering, and then worrying about that metacognitive.
Come on, man.
Out. I hate it. On top of intrusive thoughts and OCD about killing you, your children, your friends, my family, everything. So much to worry about. They'll regret asking then, wouldn't they? They'll be like, okay, you just
they would.
That was my.
I've got to leave early.
Yeah, post yesterday was like, "Hey, look, I'm just trying to not be terrified of my own effing heart for 3 minutes. Just give me a break, like back up just a little bit, and then we'll get to the thankfulness in a few minutes, please." Like right. It's tough. It's really hard.
I can see one of the comments. My grandma told me to just get my head straight. So there is a generation thing with anxiety, isn't there? The psychoeducation behind anxiety, and some of the generations not being as woke with what anxiety and anxiety disorders are. There's so many different.
Grandma's not woke at all.
Get woke, Grandma.
Get woke, Grandma. Sorry.
But it's a real thing, and the generation gaps between people can really cause a lot of arguments to do with mental health. I hear that so many times.
Well, it's interesting you even talk about being woke, because that can be a big reason for big fights, right? Is one person is more open and politically correct than the other. I think from what I saw yesterday on social media was a lot of clinicians talking about going home to their family of origin and having to listen to the stuff that we grew up listening to after being that can be incredibly overwhelming, and it's like you have to keep checking yourself, like, because you think you might go into some kind of rage at any point, because it's just such a gap between the child version of you and the mature version of you.
I saw a funny meme. Somebody posted, Thanksgiving, making business for therapists since 1621. Everybody's immersed in the nonsense that comes up around the table, political stuff and everything. Like,
it's so true.
That is so true. There must be so many people out there that are biting the tongue when they're there. And like you say, so many arguments occur because of the people who can't bite their tongue and aren't the 12-year-old kid that they last saw. They've grown up with their own opinions, their own take on life. And a lot of people just won't take mental health dismissal anymore.
Yeah.
It's good. It's really good.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just amazed that, people from Drew's and Kim's generation are speaking so openly about anxiety and mental health. It's incredible to see, and I'll always thank both of you for that.
That's it. Okay, fine. But I hear the dig in there. I do.
I didn't hear the dig. I missed the dig. What was the dig?
Thank you, Kim.
He was nice pointing out to our generation, you and me, Kim. We're speaking about it, the older folks.
I didn't see. I think of myself as their generation. I'm in denial over here.
Tough room. Me too. I'm in total denial until Dean brings it up, and then it's like.
Guys, I do want to do the media part. So anxiety in the media. Because it was fun last time. A lot of people said they enjoyed it. And also our last recovery room was the best performing by a country mile. So well done to everyone on that.
Well, even with all the echoes and stuff.
Even with all the echoes, yeah. I guess
the poop jokes.
I think you officially broke the internet last week, Dean.
Good.
Right, so the first title is Anxiety and Anger Are Linked, which explains why they can feel so similar. This is coming from a worldwide mental health expert and family therapist who says that you should treat anger and anxiety the same way. Anyone want to jump in on that?
I'm not going to give the official answer on it, but I was also talking about this with someone today, not in the therapy practice, but as part of the support work I do. And in some cases, a lot of ERP applies a lot to excessive anger and stuff like that. And that's what they were telling me in their therapy, that they would kind of expose themselves to safely to the stimulus of anger and not respond to it in that way. I mean, Kim would have to give you a more complex answer, but I just thought it was really interesting that there was a bit of an overlap there. But also, you've got to pinpoint, is the anger actually kind of telling you something? Like, if you're constantly angry and maybe you're in a situation that isn't sustainable, and maybe you've actually got every right to be angry continually, and that source of anger isn't going anywhere, as opposed to just being angry at something that happened a long time ago that you haven't processed.
Yeah, I love this. So the way I understand anger is that it's just a generational and an innate part of who we are. So the way I understand, and the research I've done around anger is our another threat response, just like anxiety is another threat response. So if a bear is approaching us, we set off the fight, flight, and freeze, and we have anxiety. But sometimes when we're in danger, anticipated or projected, we get into a fight mode, which can be anger, and we go into anger response. So I agree that it can be the same, right? I think that we can experience them the same. They may show up physiologically the same, and they can have the same sort of goal, which is to keep ourselves alive. However, I will give you my personal opinion on this is I was raised to believe in some respect or other through the culture of Australia that like women don't get angry. Like we shouldn't, it's not ladylike. And so I have for years had every time I get angry, I get anxiety because I know I'm not supposed, I'm like, you shouldn't be feeling this, you shouldn't be feeling this. And that would created a lot of anxiety. So like if my husband did something that infuriated me, I would experience more anxiety than anger because I'm like, I'm not supposed to say anything. I had to work through that in therapy extensively.
Like
So
repressing
yeah, that's a big thing in Australian culture, you said.
I wouldn't say it's an entire Australian culture, but it was in my sort of circle of, we don't express anger. If we do, we do it in a very kind, compassionate way. We don't set boundaries very clearly. We don't share our emotions that much. And so no, I had a lot of anxiety around expressing anger. Now I'm excellent expressing anger.
That's like a female thing. Did you say that was like kind of women don't express anger?
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed to.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's unladylike. It's dramatic. You're seeking attention.
Wow.
Lots of
wrong.
The
lots of
angriest
women.
angriest people in my family were the women. No doubt about it. Let that shit fly. There was no.
But
That's
Yeah.
it, man. Coming out,
But it goes back to that old kind of patriarchal view of women who are vocal are hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely a medical term used frighteningly not long ago.
Yeah.
Even anxiety disorders or anything that wasn't emotional conservatism was hysteria. They just had hospitals of people diagnosed with hysteria
Right.
because, and even though men had that, it was shell shock and trauma and things like that. It was almost like a sympathy there. But for women, no, they're just hysterical. And particularly for women with like postpartum depression and shit like that. They've had it difficult.
Right.
They really have.
Yeah. Do you think that women are more likely to be dismissed with mental health than men?
No. I think men get more dismissed than women.
Yeah. Me too. I think it's the other way.
Yeah. Because I think men are expected to they're not supposed to be vulnerable. They're supposed to be manly in how they handle things and level-headed and rational. Particularly in Australia. I think in America, we're a little more open, but still, I think it's hard for men to raise their hand and say, I need help.
Yeah, well, we've got
same in the UK.
So keep calm, carry on, embedded into our very fabric of our culture.
Yeah.
That's what we're up against. That's going to go out, stand outside Buckingham Palace and have a meltdown and scream, not keep calm, not carry on. Attack the guards, urinate on the palace walls, go crazy. In the name of mental health awareness.
Yeah.
All for our mental health, of course.
In Australia, there's a common saying called "she'll be right, mate." I don't know if you know that saying, but "she'll be right, mate" is the absolute blanket response. Was the blanket response in the 80s and the 90s for mental health struggles? She'll be right, mate. Like it's get up, come on, you'll be right. Come on,
Dean, we had that one in Manchester. So, be right.
Right.
Be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
It's I can see someone put, I think anxiety can lead to anger due to feelings of irritability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Drew, do you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know for me, I was definitely more prone to anger, which sucked because I didn't like where I was. I was frustrated. I was, nothing was working out for me, and I was working hard at this thing, and I wasn't happy with myself. So yeah, I was irritable for sure. I had a short fuse anyway for a lot of my life, but it was even shorter then. But the bad part about it is I would get triggered and like super angry, and then that super angry, like I would turn into the Hulk, and then I would immediately crush into like panic. So the Hulk would get wiped, like knocked on his ass by panic because the anger would turn into fear. So it was just it was a shitty place to be because it was just this weird swings and like, no, I don't want to get angry because then it's going to make me panic or morph into panic. So yeah, but as I got better in recovery, that my trigger level came down or my tolerance level went up. I wasn't so irritable all the time. It was a natural progression, but I was much angrier for sure.
That's really interesting. I hear so many people saying that they're that frustrated with anxiety that it comes out in anger. Often I hear people saying that they'll just like spontaneously start crying because it's all this built up emotion of anxiety that they're dealing with so often, and they just don't have a source to outlay that anxiety on. So people will be angry, people will be upset, some people get depressed. Yeah, it's really interesting. The next question, guys, you're gonna love it because I've just seen it in the news. And you will love this one. So the title is The Unexpected Spiritual Practice That Majorly Eased My Anxiety. So this is from a American therapist.
Oh God!
I promise I'm not picking on America. But the lady says that the word oracle means to answer or a decision. So she created an oracle deck, which is a tool used to give you clarity and alignment and reduce anxiety.
You're doing it purposely, Dean. I know you are.
We just talked about
yeah. This is literally the third one. Or if you want, guys,
when you saw that on the news, you were like, "This is going
to." What do you guys think on that? We need an opinion. This is the third headline down. If you Google it, what do you guys think of a spiritual journey with an oracle deck to reduce anxiety? Anyone?
If it works for you, you go for it.
Well, I think I have a question. So by pulling a card, that gives you the answer to your anxiety. Is that what they're saying?
Let me just read it 1 second. I designed the deck because I needed new tools to help myself and others overcome anxiety, doubt, and fear. How fitting that the universe delivered it to my doorstep upon returning home from the emergency room that she went to for her anxiety disorder. So it works by using grounding tools to reduce anxiety. So the people are told to focus on the card instead of what's happening inside them.
Okay. I have an opinion. I think that for people with fear, that may be okay, so we've got to really distinguish. A lot of people have solutions for an anxiety disorder, but really they have a solution to fear, right? Which is like, oh, you have fear. Here's some grounding tools. But people fail to see that a disorder is a mental illness that requires a level of care. If that said, I found a solution to your experience of fear, I would go, okay, maybe that's a tool to put in your tool belt. But when they're talking about anxiety disorders, that is horrible marketing in my mind.
I think the problem is when people are speaking about anxiety disorders, a lot of the time when it's in the media, when people are marketing and promoting it, they're just using the blanket term anxiety. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes about, even in our communities, when people don't realize, is it just anxiety that everybody deals with, the emotion that's there to protect us from fear, or is it a mental illness and anxiety disorder that can have a detrimental impact on our day-to-day living?
And to be fair, they didn't say for anxiety disorders or
they didn't.
Right.
Okay.
It's interesting because like my mum's into loads of spirituality and things like that, and she uses it to deal with grief and stuff. And she's into like these decks and Saint whatever he's called, Saint Michael or whatever. And you know what? I think it's great for her because it really helps her contextualize what is an unfathomable tragedy that happened in her life. She lost her own son, stuff like that. So she has a belief system. It works. And that's why I'm on the fence. It depends what your belief system is. If you're into spiritual stuff, cool. I'll never tell you not to. I'm not, because I'm a miserable bastard. But there are other people out there that do, and it works for her. And you know what? I sit there with her and chat with her about it and stuff, and my mum's happy. So I would never dismiss it. If my mum had an anxiety disorder, I'd be marching on there and be like, no, this is compulsions. This is empty reassurance seeking. We need to get out of that cycle. But yeah, if it's conventional external anxiety and it works for you, go for it. If you are, like Kim said, in the cycle, because anxiety disorders are always a cycle. If you're in an anxiety disorder cycle, then that can actually have a detrimental effect.
I I like what you said. Sorry, Drew.
All right.
Go
No,
ahead.
good. No, you
I
can.
like what you said, Josh, in that we have to be responsible for our own recovery, and if it works for you, it works for you. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a very liberal approach, which
Yeah.
is great in the society that we're living in.
Exactly.
I think that the Oracle, like it's an Oracle deck, it probably colors that story a little bit. If she had just said, I came up with some, grounding technique that helps me come back to the present and ease my mind, we probably wouldn't be questioning it so much. But the fact that she calls it an Oracle deck and attaches all that connotation to it, that raises a red flag for me. But I would agree with what you guys said. Like, depends on what the application is.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's not marketing it to people with OCD. That's
same with religion as
Yeah.
well. Like someone just said there in the comments, like like it's fine, it's okay. But again, if it's for an anxiety disorder, no, like it's something that requires specialist intervention. But if you've just got worries, I mean, it's been proven, scientifically proven, that praying lowers general anxiety, which is crazy. Like they even did it, and I used to do it as a kid, even when I wasn't religious. It was like therapy in itself. But if I'm praying for the anxiety to not have a panic attack tomorrow morning or to not have an intrusive thought, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So would your take be that having those sort of tools like the spirituality, the religion, is good for your overall sort of daily, weekly routine? Like if you have it, you're not saying if you have an anxiety disorder that you shouldn't pray and you shouldn't have these cards. You're not saying that, are you? Just to be clear.
Well, and I would, let me disclose something to you. I love those kinds of cards. But as Drew, I do. But as Drew,
him for Secret Santa,
I'm coming out of the closet.
And Oracle decks.
No, but that's the interesting, as Drew said, is I have a Pema Chodron card deck on compassion. I have one on acceptance and commitment therapy. Like they're little decks, and they're in a box. And so I think that the card style can be really helpful for people because remember, mindfulness is based on spiritual practices. And so it's a huge piece of the work. So the spiritual piece isn't a problem. I think, like Drew said, if you're pulling a card to answer this question of uncertainty you have is where you may get into trouble.
Or to take it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please take away my fear. Please take away my,
Right. But there are CBT card decks. I love the card deck format, but I think the content matters. Just like I like books, but the content matters. And I like podcasts and the content matters.
So are you saying that me and Dean are okay to keep collecting our Pokemon cards and meeting up at weekends and trading them?
if you like.
Hey, sure. Pokemon. Love it.
No, that's great. One last one from the media, then we'll go back into the questions, guys. Two women on how they stopping drinking cured their anxiety disorders, because every time they would drink, the next day they would have intense waves of anxiety. Now they went cold turkey, they stopped drinking, and they believed that is what cured them from an anxiety disorder.
I would take this one. Because
the
one topic that I cannot believe that I speak about more than any other, there's two, they're connected though, is coffee and alcohol. More than any other, those topics come up again and again and again. And I always say, and here's my own experience. I refused. I would not drink any caffeine, and I would not drink any alcohol at all while I was in the thick of it, because then it would make me feel different. And anything that made me feel different was very, very bad for me. So I avoided it like the plague. And as things went on and on and on, toward the end of it, I would actually use like a glass of wine or a drink or a cup of coffee as practice. Like, all right, let me bring up these physical sensations and move through them. But I hear people say that all the time. And again, I think this might be one of those, are they talking about just having anxiety or being stuck in the cycle of panic disorder or OCD? Like that's a little different animal. So if they drank and felt crappy the next day, and that just made them feel bad, then yeah, if you stop drinking, I'm going to say, sure, you won't feel that anymore. That makes sense. But I'm not sure that I would buy, like I stopped drinking, that it cured my anxiety disorder. My panic disorder magically went away. I don't know how that would be. I mean, I'm curious what you guys think.
I often advise, you'll know this, Drew, and well, all of you actually, I don't know why, but like when you're in the midst of like intense panic disorder, where you have no psychoeducation, no knowledge of what's happening, I do actually recommend straight away cut out stimulants straight away, just to overall ground you and then reintroduce you. Because there's no, there's no point being purist about it and be like, well, no, avoidance. And no, I'm like, whoa, let's just give your nerves a little rest. A bit of Dr. Claire Weeks, like just your nerves need to calm down first before we do this. And then I'll introduce that, because ultimately the aim is to do what non-anxious you would have done, or as I hear in my practice all the time, what the old me would have done. I just want to do what the old me would have done. I've gone out and had some wine or some coffee in the morning, or ate loads of glutinous food. I'm like, well, we can do that. That's recovery. You should know anxiety or OCD shouldn't stop you from doing what you're originally doing. And actually, you can regain your life back. That's what's going to influence our exposure plan and our recovery plan. Let's go back to what non-anxious us would do. But at the same time, it's okay to cut things out initially in order to lay down your foundations for recovery. So for me, that's what I did. I did cut out caffeine initially. I did stop drinking initially. I did stop really kind of carb heavy foods because I do struggle with IBS as well. So obviously, is it possible to do it without doing that? Of course it is, but you're allowed to make things easy for yourself and then build it up again. And then doing the fun exposures where you're like, I used to have a can of Diet Coke and let the caffeine hit me. I'm like,
yeah, I would do the same thing.
So it was so weird because it's like I'm half hyper and excited and half think I'm going to die.
Yeah, well, when we're in an anxiety disorder, Josh, you mentioned this on your course, which, do you know what I mean, ties into the fact that you got a Black Friday deal on at the moment, and it's Black Friday 99 for your course, which is fantastic. The link's in my bio, guys. If you want to grab it, I would do. But back onto this, you often talk about the meerkat, which is the meerkat response when you're in an anxiety disorder, and anything that like draws attention to something that's not feeling right. So I used to get anxious when it used to go from light, like the dusk, when it used to go from light to dark, and that would raise my anxiety because of the subtle changes in my surroundings. So coffee doesn't cause anxiety, but the response, your body's response to coffee, can mimic an anxiety response, which then you can misinterpret, and that can cause more anxiety. So I think I agree with you about cutting out the coffee, cutting out anything that can really like shine a light on, like give that meerkat a heads up to look for these dangers. However, I've heard of people, and I do think I fell down this rabbit hole as well, of constantly looking on the back of like drinks to see if there was caffeine in them, and avoid it. Looking at chocolate as well, seeing that there was caffeine in chocolate, and avoiding.
I used to
still do that. I don't, not because I'm mega afraid of it. I just don't want to be led in bed at 3 a.m. going like that.
Because you had something to eat that you didn't know had caffeine in it.
Yeah,
right?
tyramine in chocolate sends me bananas. I'm just like, yes, yeah, which is fine in the morning, but not at 9 when I remember sat in led in bed. I was like, why am I so irritated? Why can't I sleep? I'm usually tired. I'm like, there was tyramine in that pudding at the restaurant. I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. But I know you mean like checking the packet to see if there's something there that may make me feel uncomfortable and uncertain. Yeah. It's try to get the right balance. For me, though, what's really important is that the reason why I tell people to cut all that out initially is because 90% of what I do is psychoeducation, and I want people calm to absorb the psychoeducation. You're going to absorb and literally absorb more and retain more information sat in this practice when you're calm and you've not had 4 coffees to get here, because you're going to be like, if you're sat and you're calm, and it's almost like the premise of like hypnotherapy. Not that I'm a hypnotherapist or will ever intend to be one, but when you are calm, it's done to that. The calmer you are, the more that you retain information, and that's what I like to do. It's like, let's make things easier, learn about psychoeducation, and then reintroduce all these things again, and that's fine.
Someone's just saying they're about to hop on an aeroplane, so maybe that causes them anxiety usually.
On an
So
airplane?
what-
That's Kara. Kara's
Sit
killing it.
inside it. Sit inside the airplane. Don't go on
Don't
it.
hop on it. Get in it. Good advice from the panel. Kara deserves a shout out for that. She's working hard on her recovery, and she's getting on a plane today. It's a big deal.
just in a really good,
Doesn't you'll nail it.
just saw a really good comment, which was regarding the anger, that when this person sees angry people around them, it's that causes them the anxiety.
Mm.
I think that's any emotional upset can become anxiety thing. No, part of it. That's my first thought on that. Confrontation, somebody else is angry. Now they're upset. So now I get upset, and then I get anxious because I'm upset.
Well, I know a lot of clients who report anxiety around other people's emotions because they struggle to regulate their own, and they're afraid of either they're disappointed them, that they'll yell at them, that they'll judge them. Social anxiety is a big one for that. And if you have any trauma around abuse, I think seeing anger can create a trauma response as well of, I'm frightened of anyone who has a presentation of anger.
Yeah, I've heard that often. That's always heartbreaking.
Yeah.
My mom or my dad, when they got angry, I was going to be big trouble, and then that carries through,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
It's so different to change. Yeah, sorry, go on, Josh.
I was going to say it's not just when stuff like that happens. It's not just like hardcore exposure. It's like with layers of compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
There's an proper emotional connection. Yeah,
it's where stoicism really helped me when I really started to understand the fact that we're all defined by the stories we tell ourselves, by what happens to us during the day, and that the response that you get from someone or how someone interacts with you isn't to do with you. And it could be to do with that they've had a shitty day. They could have had the worst day at work with the boss. They could have just fallen out with the partner. They could be dealing with financial issues. And then the interaction that you've had with them, it isn't on you. And I think with anxiety disorders, we always think inwards, don't we? So when we see someone who's being angry or aggressive towards us, we think, oh, that's because of us, and that creates anxiety. But when you can separate that and change your behavior to how other people are acting and reacting with you, that was a big game changer for me personally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not easy to do though, because it's the default thing to often think that people are out there to get you, and the reason they're speaking to you is because of something you've done or you've said. I do totally understand that it goes against the norm, but changing your behavior to other people's reactions, I think is a big game changer.
It takes a lot of time and practice to do that, So that's not a thing you could just. People say that's a really good point, Dean. I love that because I'm a huge fan of Stoicism as well, but there's so many common threads in Buddhism and Taoism also, and that idea that what somebody thinks of me is none of my business is great, and it's easy to say to somebody who's in the thick of that, like, oh, it doesn't matter, don't let them bother you. We can't just decide to do that. It does take a long time and a lot of practice and a lot of willingness to be really uncomfortable and just have that uncertainty and that feeling sit there and know, like, okay, I can handle this, but it ain't easy, but it's really useful. Super.
And just like recovering through an anxiety disorder, it takes practice. It isn't easy. It doesn't happen overnight. When you're doing exposures or whatever, the first time you expose yourself to the anxious response, you're not going to be cured from your anxiety disorder. It's hard work. It takes a lot of practice, and there can be a lot of setbacks there, but there is a path out of it.
Right. I think that what we can do to tie it back to the holidays is I actually spoke a lot in the last week with my patients about using the holidays as an opportunity to practice just riding waves of emotions, right? Like, oh, you're sitting at the table and your family member commented on your food or on your anxiety. Can you actually give them zero response and just ride that wave out? And you'll be like, great, that's one. That's one down.
Kimberly's household is just ERP. I can imagine, I can picture Kim's house now. Everything is ERP.
No, I think it's more just being radically willing to ride your emotions, right? Because there's so many of them. We've talked about anger and we've talked about alcohol and all those things. And I think a lot of that is, I mean, yeah, we could call it ERP, but it's also just feeling your feelings, right?
Absolutely.
Have to.
Being human.
Nice. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys want to add that we've missed out? I think we got through a lot. I can see we're coming up to the hour mark. Is there any questions, Drew, that are popping up on the forum that you can see?
No, I think people have been pretty much commenting in line with what we've been talking about. You know what kind of stinks today? I have a feeling the Facebook feed is broken. We have primarily YouTube people here, so sorry about that for those who watch.
They've all abandoned us.
They've abandoned us, yeah. But no, I think everybody's pretty much followed along with us. We don't have the same number of comments because I don't think we're live on Facebook like we usually are. So sucks. Yeah.
Well, we will upload it to the recovery room and we'll all share it on our platform so you guys who can obviously come and listen to it who haven't listened to it. But yeah, I'd just like to thank you everyone for coming back. I know it's the holidays for you two, so a big thank you to you two for coming and stopping by. And Josh, obviously, thank you so much for everything you do. You're just a shining beacon.
We'll be chatting again shortly.
I know. We're back on at 8:30, isn't it? Yeah.
For a long time yesterday.
Yeah.
Don't even get us started on what happened yesterday.
Oh, boy. Never mind.
8:30, Josh. Yeah.
Can we move it to 9 so I can eat something?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Everybody's just watching us take care of our business now.
Yeah. So, is anyone working on anything in this for the rest of the week? Do you guys just want to give a little outro before we go?
Well, let me share. So on Instagram, I did a full poll on people's anxiety questions, and it's a 2-part series on my podcast, Your Anxiety Toolkit. One is specifically related to setting boundaries with family members over the holidays. So they will be coming out over the next 2 weeks. If you want to keep working through this stuff, and by coincidence, I recorded them, and not related to this episode, but those resources will be there in the next 2 Fridays.
Your episode did with they called it about when you had the guest on, Kim, with OCD and emotions and stuff. That was a really good one. I can't remember their name, but anyway, it came up in my support group. You've got lots of fans in my support group. No one likes
Kim,
me.
And I'm really excited to come and record with you as well very shortly.
Yes,
extremely fun. So
I know. So excited.
I can see in the comments, Nikki Neat saying, definitely relate to what you say, Dean. Just wanted to highlight that. Nikki, yeah, I'm glad you do.
The words of wisdom from the Dean Master.
The Deanster.
Yeah.
Who has managed to keep composed today? No laughing fits, which is fantastic.
We did good. I think we did really good.
We did good.
No getting
Drew, anything special happening?
Just a lot of projects going on. And until if anybody's watching this live or you see it right away, if you look at my Facebook or my Instagram, there's a link over to get 7% Slower, and the Anxious Truth in Kindle format is 40% off, and the audiobook is 40% off. So I'm going to do the Black Friday thing too. Look at me, man. So if you don't have those and you want to grab them, there are links all over the place. So go grab them. Check it out.
Dean, Drew, is our audiobook uploaded yet?
Is it live?
Yeah,
now? Is it now? How about now? Is it live now? Any minute now. It could be today.
Yeah. So. We just keep annoying him every day. Like, is it done yet?
Is it done now? How about now? Is it now? Is it now? I feel like I'm driving the car. Like, are we there yet?
Are we there? Are we there? Are we there?
Yeah.
Don't make me
and
stop
Dean
the
in
car.
the back.
Don't make me pull over and whack
Don't
you.
make me stop the scores. I will. Doing the thing to Josh. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. He's touching me. Like, that's what's going on.
That's up to the back. Yeah.
Anyway,
Josh, any parting words you want to leave the community with?
No, it's wonderful, but it's Black Friday. If you want the Stop Fearing Fear course, come and join our live shortly, and we'll, Dean and I will be talking nonsense and shamelessly selling our course like some Peckham market stall salesman.
Sounds good. Fantastic. And like Josh mentioned, the audiobook, which was produced by Drew. We'd like to thank you personally for everything you did there, Drew. And yeah, we can't wait for that to be out, and we'll be back on the market stall.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, there's some really exciting parts in that. I can't wait for the audience to hear it.
It's all good. The
All
car
right,
chase.
thank you so much.
The coach.
Thanks.
Car chase is going to blow everybody away. Anyway, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Drew, roll the credits.
So the credit, we're out. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.